Ah, we're live.
Yeah.
We're live now. Thanks, Dad.
But the best part for
You missed
the
it.
best part
wanted the world
for
to
my
know.
brother was he called in, like he had his roommate dial the phone and he called in asking if he could have his finals postponed. And they're like, well, why? And he's like, I'm blind.
I can't see. Yeah.
And they're like, okay, could you bring in a doctor's note? And he's just like, I'm blind. They're like, okay, well, after your vision comes back, bring one in, please. He's like, fine. He's like, yeah, I think I found the only one because they said last year, like, a guy's wife died during finals week and they didn't postpone his finals.
Wow.
Those lawyers are ruthless.
All right. I am calling this this episode. I'm saying here we will attempt to tackle politics through the lens of board games, like we do every week.
This is where we lose followers because Andy does not have a filter.
That's right. Oh no, this is like your love for coin games. Where does it start, Ted? Or do you love coin games? Do you actually like just have this like burning, loathing, seething hatred where you only make fan expansions for games you can't stand?
I like the games. They're games that are very, very frustrating, right? And I like that. Don't ask me why.
Mm-hmm.
They're the kind of game where you have all these things you want to do and you can't do them. You
Mm-hmm.
keep trying to set things up and then something will happen and you have to sort of jump on that opportunity or somebody else jumps on some opportunity they have and
Mm-hmm.
indirectly derail everything you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that because it's just unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Or you really want the action with feet, and then the person goes to the one where you're going to get stuck with a limited command, and you just scream.
Yeah. It's just that kind of, that kind of stuff. I don't know why I really enjoy it. It's there's a chaos element to it. It's also it's one of these things where you have to sort of dive in a very, I don't know, you can't approach that game in a scripted way. You have to have this vague sense, this drive of like, I'm going to get this done. That is my strategy for the game. And you just have to swatting away all these other things that are going on and try to focus on that. And I don't know, that really appeals. So
I just have this
it's
image
very
in my head
realistic.
right now, as you're talking of a father in like your Chevy Chase in the American Vacation or something, and he's got his hands on the wheel, but then he's got to go pay attention to these kids behind him that are fighting, and so mom grabs the wheel for a while, and mom decides she'd rather go over here, and then dad gets the wheel back, and then by the time he's paying attention again, you've got fights going on over here, distractions running, so that the kids are up in the front seat driving the car for a while.
Yeah, that's
I just
Afghanistan
got
in a
done
nutshell.
doing the practice game for Dragon. That one's crazy.
Yeah.
The thing I liked about Andean Abyss, more so than any other coin game, is that if you're the government, you're babysitting everyone. You've got to keep everybody else under control, and you cannot keep your eyes off of them at any particular moment in the game. And that makes that faction particularly hard to play.
You check the chat right now, guys. You'll see that I've put the list to the link to the pop-out chat. That is people that are live recording. We've got Norm. We've got Carter. Carter is one of the gamers that was at my gamers club today, right after school, and he got to play one of the new unlocks. And by new, I mean last year's unlocks, because I still haven't got the new unlocks. But these were new unlocks to him, the unlock games. But it was fantastic. They found the treasure, so you'd say, but it definitely took them a long time. And I told Carter, don't feel bad, because it took me so long to finish this one. It's supposed to take an hour, and we ended up getting done, not even finishing, and being like, we need to go eat. So we put it on hold while we went and ate, and then came back and failed after the lunch. We succeeded, but we did not get it in time. So good gamers club, and good to see you there, Carter. Today we're going to be talking a lot about the Ted, who's here with us, is using a board game to sort of look through the lens of a lot of political discussions. So I think this will be kind of an interesting, because you're an educator or have some sort of an educating. Do you do any this is
I
one of my
teach.
so. You
Yeah, I
teach?
teach. Yeah, I mean, I took my economics degree and I made myself a failed economist professor. So, yeah, I mean, I was just going nowhere, and I got angry and gave up, and I started just saying, screw it, I'm going to play video games. That's all I'm going to do. I'll go in and teach my classes, play video games, and that's it. And then I thought it would be funny to write a paper about the economy in a video game. Ha ha ha. And it turns out, when I put it online, it just took off. And so I went from being a total failure in economics to having a really good gig in communication, working on games. So
Nice.
it was
That's
really,
a pretty
really
awesome
lucky.
story right there. I mean, if you're listening to that, like, it's one of the biggest things, Ted, that I'm looking to like. So many people see gaming as just like a hole to fall into. Obviously, right now this is preaching to the choir, right? I mean, you're listening to a tabletop gaming podcast, but so I mean, you know, you're gonna be like, I think the right ground to sow these seeds into. But I mean, like, there's legitimate pursuit of, you know, like it's an industry, and it's an industry that has, like, it can have some impacts on your life that can kind of be tangentially connected to gaming, but it's not something to just blow off as something those kids do when they ain't doing what they're supposed to.
Oh gosh, we could talk for an hour and a half about that. I mean, there are more middle-aged women playing online games than there are teenage boys. That's a stat. I mean, it's the truth.
Candy Crush. Is this a legitimate statistic that you just gave? Whoa!
So I have a middle-aged woman and a teenage boy in my house, and they both play Fortnite.
I don't know if middle-aged women are playing Fortnite.
Which one uses more swear words on voice chat?
I'm not sure, but let's just say I actually can't answer that because I'm not sure.
That's too close. No, all right, but there's a little witchcraft in the statistic because think about it. Teenage boys, that's like 3 to 4 years. Middle-aged women, that's a 30 or 40-year stretch. Okay, so it's like you're not exactly comparing apples to apples, but it just blows people away. You don't realize how much gaming is stuff like, you know, Farmville back in the day, or Bejeweled, and all these like
solitaire with my buddies' moms.
Yeah, Words with Friends, and
Mm-hmm.
Spider Solitaire was all I did during business law class in high school.
Was that you, Ted? Were you teaching that one?
No one would do that because I'm so interesting.
Yeah. Well, at least half of every class in business law was just watching Judge Wapner.
I don't actually teach. I let the games do the teaching. I have my students play board games. And,
nice. Oh, dude, speaking of which, right now in our chat we have Norm, who's our cardboard cohort. He started a podcast called Cardboard in the Classroom, which is like kind of our sister brother podcast, and he teaches in kind of a similar way for a psychology class.
Yeah. Well, I'd be interested in hearing. I mean, what I'm trying to do is teach people what's in the guts of a game. If you're playing a computer game, you don't really see what's going on. If you're playing a board game, you're the computer, right? You have to implement. And so I think just teaching them games like Power Grid and D&D, and I just sort of point out while they're playing, here's all the stuff that is going on that you're maybe not seeing. And that's how we teach them game systems.
Yeah. There's what was it, the one I'd read about, they were using D&D in prison systems?
I hadn't read that.
Yeah, no, they were literally
especially the tunneling part.
Yeah, they were using them in prison systems, and then what they were doing was they had to play good aligned characters and then get bonus XP for behaving in character. So it was like training them how to be empathetic and make better decisions. And apparently it was being very successful.
It's like the Dwight Altoid thing from The Office, you know? Like, I need an Altoid right now. You need to do the right thing here. I just can't think about the bad thing anymore. So, well, guys, we got Trent here, TC. How's it going over there? How is it, dude? TC.
Yes.
How are you feeling? Are you like? I feel like I interrupted you in the midst of reading something.
Oh no, I'm just tired. I had a long day at work. Hey, go ahead. Yes. What would you like me to do? Sorry.
I'm still in my Taekwondo uniform. form, if that tells you anything. I just came.
I'm trying to
manage.
manage kids, and but it's okay. I got the door closed. I'm focusing now. I'm good.
Oh, you're totally surprised. I was just like, I felt like, oh no, are we forgetting TC? Is all.
Oh no, I'm here. I'm never forgetting me.
Two words, TC, to managing them children. Shock collars.
That works on one of them. I think the other one's immune now.
We tried that.
I felt so bad for my dad's dog. My mom had the shock collar on him, and he like jumped in the pond, and then got off and tried running, and so she hit the shock, but then didn't realize she had it set to max voltage, continuous shock. So like the dog curled up in the ground, and she panicked, so it took her forever to turn it off.
Oh, so you just turned on, and
the dog kind of came over and was like, "What did I do?" But he didn't run off again.
Oh man! At least it was something bad that started it, so it wasn't just like, oops, I dropped my remote.
The dog forever fears the remote.
Hey TC, if your convention in April, the one that's in Portland, Norm wants to know in the chat.
Oh, about the. Let's see here. I was about to. Oh, con, yes, GameStorm. Give me a few minutes to pull up the dates right quick. I do believe it's in March.
Okay. Well, while you're doing that, dude, I'll let you take care of that in the chat. And are we about ready to get kicked off here, boys? I know we kind of already.
I'm ready.
Kicked off some elements of discussion, but we'll do this like for reals here. Okay. Before we get started, Ted, did you have a specific game you'd like to have me add to the show notes for the review and hype, or are you interested in reviewing?
No. Oh, I see. So I'm not exactly familiar with what it is. So the idea is I would mention a game and then I would talk about it. Is that? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty a lot to ask. I know.
Just a brief.
Just sort of whatever it is. What am I
It's
being
just a
asked
brief
to do?
review, not an in-depth one.
It's you too far. I know. I mean, here you are. We got a guppy jumping into the Shark Tank, and here I am asking him to
review a game. Jeez. Gosh, I've been playing For the People a lot lately.
Yes, good man.
I mean, I like war games. That's the thing, It's just
even better, man.
It's like I get sick of the Euro, like collect the resources and improve your economic. It's like I want to destroy armies. I want to.
Did my daughter just walk in here?
What?
I'm fine with changing the resources around if they are then used to destroy armies. So if I can turn in cubes or like bullets, then it's good.
How about Here I Stand? That's one that's driving me crazy lately.
Have you been playing with the upgrade, the 500th anniversary edition?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, that one's one that I know Trent's interested in as well, and TC is right up your alley, so that would be a great.
Here I Stand. There it is. Here I Stand.
I added mine to the document.
All right, guys. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Sallin. I'm joined tonight by a special guest, Ted. Now, Ted, it says a different name on our email stuff, but I'm saying it right.
Yeah.
Ted, that's what you go by.
Yeah, my name's Edward, but Ted is my nickname.
All right. Well, Ted, Ted and I had the joy of meeting at WBC now several months ago in Pennsylvania when I was out there. I did some convention coverage, and I think I mentioned at that time that I just came upon a map and saw the box for Andean Abyss sitting next to a map that was clearly not the Andean Highlands. The Abyss was set somewhere else, and it was a map of the United States. And let's just say that, what was it, about 45 minutes before I stood back up after sitting.
We had a nice talk. It was nice.
It was
nice
great.
Talk with Joe. Okay.
And it went on.
This is Joe we're talking about, right?
You just have to be like, Joe, shut up.
This bruise is from Ted. You see? So Ted's here, and then we've got all the rest of the guys here. We got Andy, we got TC, we got Trent. We're going to be talking about his, which could have been any of these gentlemen here, but we're talking specifically about Ted's map for Andean Abyss. That is a map of the United States. He's calling it American Abyss. I think the year 2040 might have been included in the version that I saw.
Yeah, 2040 American Abyss.
So that would be 22 years in the future. And you can maybe start to go in your imagination to where this episode might lead. So understand that this is going to be quite the talk that I've been excited for a while. And, you know, it's just such an interesting to see further on down the line, even 3 months into the future. It's like, I wonder if he's got any new cards he's added by now. Like we're on this. This is, you know, we're on this downward spiral. It's fun. Let's all just grab on and just put our hands in the air. So we're going to get to that topic. First, we review games, though. And before we do any of that, though, thanks to the folks at Game Surplus for making the good, the bored, and the ugly something that, you know, you should check out, and also for sponsoring us. I mean, they're our sponsor and they're a great game store. You go check them out. My ramblings do not do them the service they deserve, because Carmen is an excellent specialist in customer service, and Elaine just does a great job with the organization, and the packaging is fantastic. Cheap, competitive prices, free shipping at $120. Go check them out, GameSurplus.com. Tell them the good, the bored, the ugly sent you, and also you could use the special podcast picks promo, which comes up in a later transition, to be able to save 10% off of the podcast pick section. So check them out at GameSurplus.com.
And thematically with the topic tonight, they got in many of the coin reprints that were coming out this summer.
Absolutely. Good point to make, Andy. Yes, coin is sort of the inspiration of tonight's topic, and sort of the thing that the what is it? The connecting fiber holding all of us together at this moment. And I'm pretty sure before you got here, Ted, it wasn't much different. You guys were already being held together by the connecting fibers of coin and other GMT games, right? Right? Andy, TC, Trent. That's like the one thing all three of my co-hosts, regular co-hosts, share in common, is that connection to coin. And you know, I'm there, but I'm more of the Little Root baby version. Don't
listen to these yo-yos. These guys prefer coin is my 18xx game. These guys play true stuff. No. I play every variation of coin, and my wife actually helped with the rules for Liberty or Death. So I'm the true coin fanatic here. So
and proud.
And drop it. You just doom. That's what people hear. Well, anyway, let's get going here then with our with the beginning, the hors d'oeuvre, the horstivores of this podcast, which will be reviews. And Ted, you teased us, and now I'm going to ask you to deliver on the GMT game, of course, that you have been playing, and its updated expansion.
All right, so what I'd like to talk about is Here I Stand. I can finish in like an hour and a half or so, if that's the amount of time we have.
Yes, no, we all take that long.
Oh, so we're just teaching the basic game.
Oh, I see. 2 hours later. Now we'll do the 1532 scenario. All right, so can you imagine the pitch, right? You go into you're going to pitch a game. It's like, what's the game about? Well, it's about the Protestant Reformation.
Oh, interesting.
Wow, the most exciting thing that ever happened. And you know, you can be Henry VIII. Okay, well that's interesting. You can be Francis of France. Okay, you could be the Pope. The Pope. Who wants to be the Pope? I mean, I like playing the Pope.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But it's like you get to burn heretics and stuff.
Yes.
I mean, but.
Only if they're Protestants. I do believe the Catholics just get run out of town.
Yeah, they just get disgraced, right?
Great, there you go. Yeah,
the true doctors of the church would never. So yeah, no, it's what I really like about it is it has unconscious role playing. So unconscious role playing is like oh, you know, Joe, you're going to be the cleric now, and you may be an aggressive person, but you can't help it. All you can do is run around and heal. So unconsciously, you have to play this kind of doctor nurse character. And this Here I Stand has the same thing. It's like the individual nations are built in such a way that when you're the Turks, you're just going to rampage on everything. You're just burning everything to the ground that you can get your hands on. When you're the you pirate everything, right? And when you're the Pope, you're like trying to burn the Protestants, and the Protestants are trying to light the flames of Reformation everywhere, and so on and so forth. And you find people who really even aren't like hardcore gamers sort of getting into their roles, and I really like that, and it has
role playing in a GMT box.
Yeah, and and the thing is, I really like history games. So it's very accurate historically. All the cards have all this neat stuff. So I recommend it. Although, it does take a long time to learn.
Only 6 hours.
6 hours.
Think about the update.
That's medium length.
What are the updates? Is like the 500th anniversary? Is it mainly a reprint, or is it?
Well, okay, so they improved the quality of the board. But the main thing is there were some like stupid cards and some cards missing. Like they didn't have anything for Thomas More. How can you have something about the Protestant Reformation that didn't have a Thomas More card, right? You're with me, right? So,
oh yeah, right there with you. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Like when you said Protestant Reformation, I was like, "Where's my Thomas More?"
Exactly. See.
Well, tell me about
it. So, and there were a number of things like that, and there were some kind of mechanics that were broken. Like there was this weird mechanic where the English and French would agree that the English were going to attack Scotland, and then the French were going to declare that they were Scots' allies, but then the French wouldn't do anything, and the English wouldn't do anything, and somehow or another that got both of them a free card or something. And the Scots were just going, "What's going on here?" It was unrealistic. So they added a mechanic. So
I don't know. Based on where I remember a Braveheart, that sounds accurate.
So they put in one of these elegant mechanics, right? What it is like it says if you declare war and you don't attack someone, you get like minus victory points. Isn't that elegant? You must go and attack them.
I declare bankruptcy.
So yeah, it's fun. There's a tournament at WBC with like the same 12, 15 guys, and like there's 2 of them there that drink the whole time. They get all red-faced and start spitting, and it's just like the Protestant Reformation.
It's just not that much different.
Yeah.
My game that does the Protestant Reformation so far has been PAX Renaissance, but I do someday want to play the big. I mean, the grandiose. I read the rules, dude, and I got to page 42, and that was where they described the dice.
This is the only game I own that I make people do homework before I even attempt to teach it to them. I have like a 15 to 20 page handout from a GMT article. I'm like, okay, if you're serious, you're going to read this, and there will be questions, and then I will teach you the game.
Right.
I've heard there's this one group that they always bring a Pope hat, and whoever's the Pope wears it the whole game.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is the one where the example of the dice combat that they use in the rule book is like, okay, this person who has this many forces is going to attack this person. And I'm like looking at it and I'm like, okay, this is going to be this person beats this person because clearly this is a superior force. And their example has it working out in like opposite form, in like the way every Rift battle ever goes. I have my 16 guys versus your 2 and 2 6s, 2 6s, 2 6s, 2 6s, 2 6s. And it was like a hellscape scenario for me. It was like, is this the way the dice are made to work? Like exploding dice, and then boom! It's like I'm gonna walk in and be like, okay, I've got this calculated battle. That's nope. Well, now nothing.
Well, the Persians thought they had it won until they hit the Spartans at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Anytime you're working with odds where you're rolling dice and you win on a 5 or a 6. I mean, that's like Warhammer tabletop miniatures, and the tails on that distribution are so huge that it's almost a uniform distribution. You really have no idea what you're going to get. So very random. But that makes it more fun.
Yeah. Well,
the
role playing of the different factions is a big part of that. What were you going to say, TC?
I was just going to say this is one of all the card-driven games I've ever played. This literally packs more history in a box than any other game, with probably the exception of Virgin Queen, which is basically the same designer.
Sequel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the equal. But yeah, you just rip this open. You can get lost in the history. You can get lost in the rules. I know when I played it, and I was hindering. I was trying to have a son, and I was just burning through wives, man, just to try to get my heir going, my son. And that was just like a side game to that, right? Meanwhile, there's this big, I'm like, Protestants are coming. I get that, and then Spain is like this powerhouse. And that leader can just teleport anywhere. It's such a lift. It's heavy, but when you get in and play it, you don't realize the time is going by. And it's a phenomenal game if you can get your head around it.
It is really not that hard. Here's why it's not hard. The core rules, if there's somebody at the table who understands the core rules, it's not that hard for each individual person to understand what they have to do. Mm-hmm. You have a little sheet. There's a limited number of actions. You can see what the events do, and then you can think about your actions. And, I've had success with undergraduates just sort of playing the game and not really knowing anything. You just need to have one person at the table who can say, no, you can't move there, or whatever.
Yeah. And I've actually, this one I've played quite a few times. I got the upgrade quit. I haven't integrated it because we've moved on to Virgin Queen a bit. And I'm telling you what, there is nothing quite like playing a game of Virgin Queen where your wife is playing England and you try to get a marriage going and you're jilted by your own wife.
That's
like
bad.
Elizabeth. And she gets a victory point out of it for jilting you. It was such a great game.
How do you compare the two games? I've never played Virgin Queen. I don't know.
Okay.
Are they the same? Or?
I played both too. Go ahead, TC.
Well, the biggest change that I liked is how they handled, because in Here I Stand, like every time you do like a religion, you're trying to change the religion, like rolling die for each little area, and and when the Catholics and the Protestants are playing, it's almost like a separate game from everyone else, because you two are rolling for religious control, and everyone else is just like controlling territories. In Virgin Queen, they simplify that to like one die roll that like affects multiple areas, if I remember right. And then other countries have more investment in participating in the religious fight that's going on, instead of it being mainly isolated to two. So it kind of made everyone a little bit more involved. That was the biggest one. And then secondly, it's the golden age of Queen Elizabeth, and that's like my wife's favorite freaking era in history. So that's why Here I Stand kind of got pushed to the side, because she's like, I'm Queen Elizabeth. I'm always going to be Queen Elizabeth, and we're going to play this game.
So will the people of the future, Ted, look back on the Protestant Reformation with the same goofy, I get to burn the heretics here, like 2018, 2019 politics is going to look like, with certain sides being like, what are the special abilities of the 2159 version of whatever they end up looking back and calling this?
Well, I mean, that always happens. The French Revolution is the funniest thing that ever happened, right? You get to send people to the guillotine, right? We always say, oh, the Black Plague, it's a riot. Let's make a game.
Riotous.
But, so, I don't know, actually, if our times have reached the level of tragedy that would sort of bring out that kind of dark humor. We're not there yet. We need to do something like, all right, I know this is on the internet and everything. I'm just joking around, but what if we did something horrible with the caravan? If something terrible happened with that. So, and of course, it would have to be horrible to people at our time. And then in 150 years, there'd be a game player who'd be like, and then I set that thing off, and oh man, it was awesome.
Oh man, it was awesome.
That's what
happened. So bad after I burned that person alive.
I'll give you an example right now. So I was just at a talk tonight, and there was a medieval studies lady, and she was talking about how she's using a simulation of the plague to teach kids about what it was like to be in Constantinople when there was a plague and all this stuff. And she set it up as a simulation in the program called NetLogo. You guys, some people might know about that. And and she says, now, what do you think happened when I turned the controls over to the kids? The room's silent. It's like, I know what happened. They tried to kill everyone. That's exactly what they did. How can I set this so that everyone in Constantinople dies?
They tried to kill everyone.
She was shocked by that. It's like that's.
Yeah, kids are trained. They were weaned on Plague Inc. Like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
they ain't
exactly.
gonna let Greenland slip by. You know, they aren't going to let Greenland be the
Right.
one
No,
so they can't kill
Right.
the whole human race.
That's why you always start in Greenland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, man. It's
Oh,
the
Madagascar. Another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, they do. Yeah, if I were to try something like that with middle schoolers, that's the first thing they do too. Be like, how can I kill everyone?
So we have to see. I don't know if what we're doing right now is going to rise to the level of being funny in 200 years in a sadistic kind of way.
Funny, yeah, the funny thing, like I get to do this, and it's funny because we would never do that stuff. Like that would never go.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you can look back at the Mongols and go, "Ah, man, it was cute."
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That they
Well, in
killed
Imperial Settlers, they make all of
millions
the
of
barbarians in there.
Yeah.
Cute, like looks like you could just squeeze their nose and it would honk. Well, thanks, Ted. That was Here I Stand with its 500th anniversary updated. It sounds like a few rules tweaks and a little bit of a component upgrade, but it sounds like it's the same old Here I Stand that you've known and grown to love. And I hope one day to actually get to be able to play the real thing. So thanks, Ted, for that. Now let's jump here into the TC's recent obsession.
Oh, right. Okay, so every now and then I stumble across a game that it's a hidden gem that I had no idea about, and someone brings it over, and I'm like, I don't know about this thing, and we try it, and I look at it, and I'm like, I don't know about this. And we played it. It's actually really good. And this one, get this, it's called Obsession: Pride, Intrigue, and Prejudice in Victorian England. Now, I bet you just reading that, you can tell what the game's about. This is literally Downton Abbey, the board game, right? And so we get this over, and Carissa comes over and sees that it's a Jane Austen-inspired board game. She's hooked. She's like, bam, we're going to play this. I'm like, I don't know. This is like a first-time publisher, a first-time designer. This is a Kickstarter game that came out a month ago. I haven't heard anything about, but Steven brought it over, so let's get this. Okay, he said he read the rules. Let's give it a shot. Guys, you need to play this thing. This is an amazing amount of it's got unique mechanics. It's doing something I haven't seen a board game do. It's tackling a theme that hasn't been tackled very seriously, because most other games that's based on this theme are kind of like light filler games. They don't have a lot of strategic depth to it, but this is actually really cool. And you can tell the designer had the theme in mind and then built the game up from it. So what you're doing is you're a house in Victorian England. You're trying to have the most reputation. And you're getting character cards. You have your household family, and then there's this young couple. And all four houses are trying to get this couple to come over to their house so to get more reputation, right? And there are hilarious cards in this thing. Like you can get a common card that's an American heiress, and she has lots of money, but of course she's new money, and she doesn't. It kind of hurts the reputation of your house to be associated with her to have a party. But man, she's throwing money at you left and right. But you can invite her to the party, get it, and you have the right woman, the right head of their estate. You can actually have that party, have a tea party, get your victory points, and then the head of the house was like, thank you for your money. We don't want to see you anymore. Again, you're dismissed, and you can just throw that character back into the discard pile. Things like this happen in the game all the time, and you're just a race for prestige points. You're just trying to upstart. You can spread rumors about the other house. Oh, did you see so? We speaking of Here I Stand, we roleplay. We were roleplaying the heck out of this thing. It was amazing fun, solid game. Complete sleeper hit. I didn't even know this thing existed till Wednesday. Guys, you have got to try this out. It is probably one of the more unique board games I've ever played. And it is a very interesting little beast. That's Obsession, Pride, Intrigue, and Prejudice in Victoria, England.
Wow.
Sounds good.
So how does this compare to Game of Thrones, the board game? Or have you the one that's similar to Diplomacy? Is this...
Well, Game of Thrones had more of a... Game of Thrones was more area control and backstabbing stuff. This is... It's almost multiplayer solitaire in a way, because you're playing your own cards in your own household and you're affecting different... And there's this...
Yeah, that's what I was seeing.
Yeah, and there's a bid row where you can get different houses in your estate to hold your parties in, and you can bid on... You don't bid on them, but you pay money for them to bring them down. You bring it out, and that's where you have your guests, and the they go up in value. But some of them are like, if you only have like certain guests, if you only have you have to have a high enough reputation to be able to have a cigar house to send your guys in to smoke it up and chat and start rumors and stuff. Oh, like I said, and the cards, they're like black and white stock photos of Aristocats, and the names and the descriptions are so on the money. They are so good. Like the American heiress I had was so-and-so Gamble for Protector and Gamble, right? The American company, that upstart American company we don't talk about over here in Victoria, England, right? It's good stuff, guys. Give it a shot.
Very interesting, dude. Have you guys ever heard of this one before? TC mentioned it?
Nope.
No, I have not heard of it.
Me neither, but man, TC, sounds really interesting. Sounds like you guys had an absolute blast, and we're able to equate it to Downton Abbey, which, from an outsider's perspective looks to be, like boring. But
yeah,
saying about this intrigue and the way that, this shows you kind of like Ted mentioned earlier, the you're the computer in a board game, you're the computer, whereas in a video game, the video game's the computer and you just enter into it. But in the board game, you get to be the computer, and here it sounds like really you're the computer that's pulling the strings behind the scenes of the Downton Abbey sort of cast. So that sounds super cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat.
Well, let's go ahead and move now into Trent, who played a quick family game. I think you won this one from a contest.
Yes. I received the 3, I would say, light-ended roll and write games from a drawing on the Low Player Account podcast, and it's a trilogy of them. They're all called Penny Papers, and I'm going to talk about the first one, and they all have funky names that I don't know why they gave them this weird of names, but whatever. The one I'm going to talk about is I'm going to go with this here. The Temple of Apikabu.
Why didn't they just make it something easy to pronounce?
Well, throw a cool accent on it. Throw a cool accent on it to sell it.
Apikabu.
There you go. You got it.
Peekaboo.
Peekaboo.
Peekaboo. Peekaboo. I don't really know why. Whatever.
No idea, dude.
But the theme of this one is basically mummies, and it's a roll and write game. And here's how the whole game works. Everybody has this little grid in front of them. It's just a grid of squares, and some of them have little white door logos on them, and you can tell that they're obviously supposed to be doors. And there's 3 dice, and each round, 3 dice get rolled. The way we do it when we play as a family is just 3 people roll the dice. Usually it's my 3 kids if we're playing with all 3 kids. And they each roll one of the dice. Anyway, so it comes up, and usually a lot of times it's just 3 numbers. So what you do is you can take any one of the 3 numbers alone, or add any pair of them, or add all 3 of them together, and then take that resulting number, so it could be up to 6 possible numbers, and write that on one of the available squares on your board. Okay? And then each of the die has its own individual special symbol. One of them, if it comes up, just means you ignore any other numbers on the other dice. You just get to write 1 through 15, any number you choose on any one square. Another one means you write, instead of writing out on the main board, you write on a door, one of the special door spaces. The third one, you roll a mummy. Everybody throws their papers in the middle of the table. Everybody grabs one at random, so you don't have your own paper, and you draw a mummy in one of those squares. So the way the mummy works is the mummy just fills up the space. At the end of the game, if the mummy's still alive, it's worth -2 points. But if you kill it, it's +2 points. Killing it's pretty easy. You just put a 9 in any of the 8 adjacent squares around it. So you keep playing this game over and over. You're filling in the numbers, filling in mummies as you go. And then at the end of the game, you're done. You score the mummies as I described. Anytime you have 3 numbers of the same value that are contiguous, like 333 or 999, and contiguous means diagonal's fine. Every set of those that you have of 3 or more contiguous numbers is worth 3 points. And then you trace your longest route of like 1 through 15, or like 2 through 9, or whatever. You count how many values you have that are consecutive, that are contiguous numbers, and you get that many points. And that's your final score. That's it. That's the whole game. So it's light, but it's surprisingly fun, and it plays really quick. And you find out that there's actually some thought involved as to where to place the mummies. To me, that was like probably the most thoughtful part of the game is where do I place a mummy?
Love the mummies, yes.
Yeah. Where are you going to put the mummy that's really going to cause the most problems for them?
Yeah, because you get this somebody else's paper, and you're like, how can I do something? And that's why, like, when you're actually playing the game, you're like, okay, I could go here, but then if a mummy gets rolled next, oh man, I'm really leaving myself open. That's clearly terrible place for a mummy.
The mummy is the mummy is what makes this game work, because without it, it'd be really a dull experiment in writing down numbers. The mummy just disrupts everything, and the funny thing is because it's random. Some games you'll have like almost no mummies, and some games we had one. Some games you'll have like 8 or 9 mummies. It depends. You don't know from game to game what it's going to be, but I can say that a well-placed mummy can cost another player a lot of points,
which is hilarious. I did not laugh so hard. It's so funny. And I played the next one in the series as well. It's like a pirate ship one, and it did not have the same joy. It just had it was tougher to just immediately be able to decipher, what they were going for and whatnot. It was just kind of tough for that. So
the third one's better. The third one is almost as fun as the mummy one. The pirate one is bad.
Yeah,
don't get the pirate one.
Don't get the pirate one.
I have not played the third one yet, though. But that's promising, though. And these are the types of games where I think you can play this with, as long as you have a paper for everyone, you can essentially play this with as many players as possible. There's no.
Oh yeah.
It says 1 to 99 on the box. I think it gives you 99 papers. So you could play literally one game with 99 people, and then you'd be out of components. But it would be a huge game. Entertain so many.
Yep, it's light. It works. 15 minutes. You can teach it to anyone. And I mean, like a 7 or 6-year-old could play at least the mummy one. The other ones are more complex in terms of what you have to do. But it is what it is, and it's an enjoyable time. It actually is well done. At least the mummy one is.
As Dunder Mifflins everywhere are going out of business, Penny Papers and the like are bringing the old paper back, the consumable component, man. And we're seeing this in 2018. I wonder why we're seeing so many good roll and writes here coming out. Where roll and write is becoming a larger, part of the larger swath of modern board gaming with games like Steamroller that, in my opinion, starts to push from the roll and write into more of a modern, what we'd expect from a full game experience. So it's interesting to see all these things happen. And Penny Papers is definitely one that's making it accessible and easy to a wide audience. And I agree with Trent. I had much of the same experience. Just a lot of fun placing those mummies. And I played this with Kevin and Kevin and Nancy, I believe, at WBC, and seeing they were married, and seeing Nancy draw a mummy on Kevin's paper. Kevin gets this thing back, looks at the paper, and goes, "Oh." It's a good moment. So, all right. Well, that leaves my review up for last, and I'm going to be talking about the game Pantone, the board game, I think is what they call it, or Pantone the game, I think, maybe. But anyway, Pantone is a color, they're the ones that create colors, essentially, the new colors that come out every year, and you see all these paint samples in the hardware stores here in the United States, and they're kind of start from Pantone and get some sort of sexy name by Black and Decker or whoever else, Sherwin-Williams, that makes it cool mint or whatever. But Pantone is about taking those color swatches, of which there are 15 different colors and 4 of each color. And what you're going to be trying to do is assemble them on the table, and other players are going to be trying to getting a window of opportunity to guess which character you have made. There's a deck of about 130 included characters, each of which has a sort of tiered hint system where the first hint is always very vague and is usually falls into one of 4 categories of television or comics or something like that, books. But then you'll continue to get more and more specific, and they get kind of just random, where there'll be an off-the-wall hint that somehow refers to what they do, but it's still very shrouded with, kind of ambiguity. But anyway, there's only 130 different characters, and these are top characters. But the way the game kind of crescendos into an exciting finish is, in the first round, you can use as many color swatches as you want to try to communicate who you're talking about. Second round, you can only use 1 of each color. In the third round, you can only use 3 color swatches. So try to consider, how are you going to make Oscar the Grouch out of 3 colored swatches? Essentially you have 3 pixels, and you can kind of fold them on top of each other, and you can put them at different angles, and But when it comes down to it, like, it's a lot of it is as the game gets harder, you're expected to not get it with no hints. Anyway, the earlier you guess with the least hints means the more points for both the person guessing and the person that was doing that made it in the first place. And anyway, I'm finding that I really like the system, but I have some issues. I really do feel like the game works and it's enjoyable. And if you are looking for a good game and don't really care about these, like the next thing I'm going to talk about is kind of some technical points. I would say if you were excited by that, then just go get Pantone. It works. It's definitely enjoyable. But here's one of my first problems with this. Right? I hate it when I have to keep track of score on paper or something. I want it to be included in the game. I hate it when there's no score track. And also the amount of content in this game, it's like essentially 190 Hobbit cards. That's it. And it's like got this tray so you can hold everything, and it's nice, but like it feels to me like you can put this in a deck box and charge like $5 for it. It'd be a very different feel, but it would still be the same game. So, I mean, those are things that make me feel like I got cheated because they really could have put more into this. But I'm guessing that maybe the Pantone license cost them a lot, or maybe it's just cryptozoic and they realize that like if they can make the game solid and work and interesting and good at demoing, they don't have to put in like the solid, like give the game legs. Essentially, the exact inverse of a GMT game. That's like like everybody who plays GMT expects all of the homework to be done and all of the pieces to be in order. Whereas, like, you play a game by Cryptozoic, and it's like you expect them to basically just be an advertised, like essentially a game that's like the equivalent of buying a billboard. And that's what I feel like Pantone, it's got a idea that works and not nearly enough content to make me feel like I can recommend it wholeheartedly. But if you were looking for the idea, you'll get it here. That's my review of Pantone, the game.
Yeah. How did you really feel?
Share your feelings, Joe. Share it.
I'm so bad at expressing myself. Yeah, I know, guys. You really got to sort of dig for these things. You got to coax it out of me. I don't want you to volunteer any opinion. So maybe you learned that, Ted, when you first met me. But we're going to go back to the first meeting here because this is a topic time. This, Ted, you have been making maps outside of just the toy series, or at least I felt like maybe this was a passion of yours to just create a map, to be able to sort of give a different battleground to many of the game systems you've played.
Yeah, I do. I like to mod things and do what ifs because I'm a history gamer. And so, like, when I was a kid, do you remember the old Avalon Hill game, France 1940? So that was the German invasion of France in 1940. Okay. As such, it was pretty exciting, right? There were tanks all over the place. Mm-hmm. So I got it in my mind, like, oh, let's do World War I. How are we going to do that? Let's take all the tanks out. and let's just see what happens if we have these infantry armies marching into one another. And the answer is nothing. But I thought it would be interesting to do. I was like 13, and I like doing that. Stuff like that.
Your first mod was to take a game about tanks and take the tanks out.
Yeah. How dumb this other war was. Why did anyone do that?
Hey, I'm with him. My first game mod was me and my best friend when I was like 7 turned Candyland into a war game.
Candyland with guns.
Oh, you can do it. Trust me. It was bloody. Many cute characters died.
How about shoots and ladders with like javelins or something?
There we go.
Harpoons. Get off that ladder.
Shoots and ladders. My version would just be people getting shot while they're on a ladder, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. Shoots, bang, bang. That kind of shoot.
So, yeah, I mean, I like doing what ifs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So the what if that I saw was American Abyss, which is an expansion map for Andean Abyss. This is set in a sort of dystopian vision of where current political possibilities could end up, or at least so I believed after I was looking at the way that different factions work. Is this the most? I mean, the map that I saw here was really good looking. I mean, like it you had like textures in different areas to kind of signify plains regions, and like it just looked really good. It had this nice highway that looked like it should say Route 66 in like the Pixar Cars letters or whatever.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be a coin map for the United States. And, coin games always have the lines of communication. I thought, that's cool. Use the interstate system.
Yeah.
So there's some of your favorites, the 5 in California and 95 on the East Coast, 80, which cuts. Does 80 connect me in Iowa? I'm in Indiana.
Yeah, it goes right through Des Moines.
All right, we'll have to see each other.
Well, yeah, because in Iowa, if you include that in there, it would be like, since Iowa has 35 and 80 going across it, apparently we're like a hub for human trafficking.
Great.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, yeah, Andy once shared, when I asked for weird YouTube videos, Andy shared a video that was called I-80 Iowa, and it is just corn.
Yeah.
I smell corn.
Yeah. It's only like 16 hours away, too, from where I am.
Yeah.
It's not that far.
I'll be there in 2 days. So, yeah, and if you've played Andean Abyss, it's about Colombia, of course. And Colombia has these 3 sort of strategically important kinds of terrain. One is like the unpopulated areas, which in that country are the jungles. Well, in the United States, it's going to be like, I don't know,
Amarillo,
Wyoming, right? There's there's this whole area in the West that just kind of isn't populated, so that's there. And we have jungle, it's Florida, and we have heavily wooded areas, and of course we have the big cities. And so all the mechanics in a typical coin game, involving these sorts of things on the map, they work perfectly. And it was just a matter of sort of deciding how many population points to put in the different places, like New York and LA versus Chicago, things like that.
Well, what fascinates me, Ted, is that the coin system is by no means tied to a single game anymore. Andean Abyss is the first one. And I question to what degree does the work in developing new coin games, of which so far I believe we're at, is it 7, 8, 9 in the coin series?
There are 8 published and several getting there.
Yeah, at least 9.
And we're seeing. I saw the first expansion for a coin game, the Ario Vistas expansion. Or unless I'm missing, maybe there was an update to other ones, but
there was apparently one for Cuba Libre planned, but like it went belly up for some reason, I think.
Yeah, that was the one for Falling Sky. I think what we're talking about is the first one that actually got published. I tried a prototype for the Cuba Libre, but I don't even know what happened to that thing.
I thought I'd heard something about it. There was an issue, and the designer had other projects, like they had to pull it or something. It was weird.
Yeah.
So the designer just stopped working on it, from what I heard.
Yeah.
Maybe you just kind of don't feel like doing something. I mean, it is the first expansion was Ario Vistas. And I kind of, question in my own head, like, I wonder where did these games start? Because there's a certain system here. And I feel like maybe to a certain extent that this is how they started, Ted, with the map first, maybe some start with a map, maybe some start with a central relationship or tug of war game that's observed and seeing like how that might wrap onto the existing.
Well, I mean, the thing that really connected for me with the map was like the second step. The first step would be playing a game like, Distant Plain or Andean Abyss, and then saying, okay, I'm done with the game. Then you look in the newspaper, and everyone's like, there's going to be a civil war. There's going to be a civil war. Ah! and I just thought, well, okay, what would it look like? I mean, I have this tool that demonstrates what a contemporary civil war is going to look like. It's going to have multiple factions, multiple resources, different objectives. It's going to be a dumpster fire, more or less.
The dumpster fire.
But it would be ours. Our own special little dumpster fire.
Yeah,
USA.
It'll be a freedom dumpster fire. That's what it would be.
American flags in it.
With an eagle. And
if you need card art, I can take a picture of a certain house on the way to my daughter's school. I'm pretty sure it would be in there.
We live in a very interesting and polarized place. So a lot of the dumpster fire that you've just mentioned, you've brought back a lot of the memories of what faction does what. I've actually referred to our conversation and referred to the factions that the most curious thing about this to our audience. Ted has tried, at least at the state that I saw it, you were trying to make the game so that you could interpret it as the controlling party is either side right now. Essentially, it's the controlling party It could be, if you wanted to interpret it a certain way, it's almost like you could make a coin game that has like the Ora et Labora, which I know that you loathe Euro games, but there's the Ora et Labora game right out of the box, comes with the France and the Ireland map.
I actually like that game. Okay, so.
Sure? Are you sure? Just want to make sure that I don't.
I play some Euros. I like that one because it has monks. I got to think about monks.
They
have a thing about me. No.
Dude, yeah, you like fires and monks. Dumpster fire plus monk. That's
Listen, I mean,
or not? Yeah, what's not to like? So
this other guy likes Downton Abbey. You're gonna yell at me?
Hey, I said like the game. I said it's my wife that liked Downton Abbey.
And you guys are worse.
I watched Pride and Prejudice simply because it had Alan Rickman in it. That's how Carissa got me to sit through that thing. Okay. Proceed.
All right, you like Alan Rickman? Okay.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Yeah. So, the way that you can interpret this game both ways is what fascinates me most, because we've never seen a coin game do that, because we've never seen a hypothetical coin game.
Right. Well, all right. So it started with the idea that there are 4 armed factions in the United States. Because the government has weapons, of course, and the drug dealers have weapons. Right? The gang guys. And then the other 2 that have weapons are the Tea Party, NRA, that sort of
survivalist types.
Yeah, the survivalist types. And then there's Black Lives Matters and Antifa and that side of it that is increasing. So, and by the way, I just want to say I'm politically neutral about this. I'm really just trying to see this from the standpoint of security analyst. Not that I am one, but I don't really want either of these scenarios to happen, but I could see them both. So scenario 1 would be, let's say we go from right now. So we have a right-wing government, and things go on, and the left feels themselves increasingly shut out, and so they take to arms. And what do we learn from contemporary civil wars? What will happen is it'll be blue versus red, government versus the Antifa people, and then the government will lose control of the Tea Party and the NRA, who will just start vigilante actions against the Reds, and the drug dealers will take advantage of the chaos to just do their thing.
Yeah, they settle into unstable situations, and unstable situations are what breed this sort of thing in the first place.
Right, and everybody's looking at everyone else and thinking, well, we don't want that person to succeed, so they all gang up on them. So it goes on forever.
Well, to give you an example, right now, we're dealing with a barrage of ads on our TV here in the state of Iowa, and I mean, they're now using the following words as though they were buzzwords for don't let this happen, and that what the words I'm referring to are liberal and conservative. You hear liberal,
it's the end of the world,
and it's liberal, conservative, what. These are just words that we use. We weren't oh, that's bad. That would just be that's kind of a different philosophy. Yeah. It wasn't you didn't have to be conservative about everything. You could just be, have some.
Gray's been eliminated. It's a black and white.
And you see people saying well, we have to oppose such and such at all costs. It's really at all costs, really?
Yeah,
that could get pretty.
I have
awful.
To do this no matter what, and it's very what it's doing is it's taking the ability to be pragmatic out of politicians. And isn't pragmatism and just a pragmatic approach arguably what you want from a politician? Somebody's going to make the right decision, not the decision they said they would do 2 years ago, even though the facts have changed.
Yeah, we're supposed to. I actually think that's supposed to be one of the American characteristics, is that we're supposed to be more pragmatic. The Europeans, who we all hate, are always at each other's throats.
Well, they're keeping live recording. So yeah, we hate them all. I love you guys. Love you.
Yeah. No, seriously, we love Europe. But Europeans, they don't bat an eye to say, our newspaper is not objective. We're reporting the news from our standpoint. We have our fans. We vote for our party, and if we get 50.0001% of the parliament, we're going to do it all our way, and you can go to. And it just hasn't been. Americans, for whatever reason, haven't really been that way. But now we are.
Walter Cronkite and Edward Murrow have anything to do with that. That's what we expect, the ideal that we hold everybody to, even though even those guys were, essentially the spout for, whatever agenda.
What I think, and I'm sorry to monopolize here, but I kind of think it has something to do with our governing institutions. We used to have the filibuster in the Senate. There was all this stuff that prevented anybody from doing anything unless you could get other people to agree. And it's just since like 2005, it's sort of eroded. And it's eroded because people started to get really pissed off at each other back in the 80s and 90s. So it's been a long, slow road. So let me talk about the other scenario. So the other scenario is, suppose the left wing gets in charge and the right feels like it's been shut out. Okay, so what would that look like? That would look like there's a left wing government. Okay, there's the blues. The reds are the NRA Tea Party people, right? They're the ones rebelling. And then the government would lose control of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who would, get in caravans, go out of the cities and shoot people up. And then the drug dealers, okay? And I don't know if either one of those is plausible, but it seems to me like that's kind of, when I see the four armed factions, that I think it could go either way. They'd both be bad.
Well, yeah, certainly. Like a scenario in which we have to be afraid of there being armed groups that are out of control of the government, but still, like the government still sort of like doesn't, kind of has selective blind towards what they're doing because they're, they need their support.
Yeah, they're sort of saying, look, just don't make us look guilty, but you go and do that. And then on their part, the vigilante people are like, why don't you really get tough with these guys? Just go in and gun them down. That's what those people are going to be saying.
Yeah, like you're never going to be fixed, so we're going to fix things for the rest of us by taking you out of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I mean, like, we're recording this on the eve of threats and the thing like the bomb thing, right? Yeah. That like whatever, like it's there are events that like make you kind of worry about those types of things. And you as an educator who's primarily using this tool of board games to essentially avoid doing a real job.
Someone finally understands me.
Yeah, see that coming, didn't you? Anyway, I'll just turn it over to you now. That was all I wanted to say. I just got a sick burn it.
Well, to be fair, Joe, like I've had family that when I said I'm going into teaching, they're like, "Oh, it's good to give back to the community. In a few years, you'll get a real job."
Wow. I've got a question right quick. So, is this using the same cards that come in the Andean Abyss game?
Yeah.
With the same flavor text and everything?
Right. So here's the deal. It turns out, this is weird, the mechanics all work. Just ignore the flavor text. And the mechanics all work with a few translations. Like when they talk about Panama, in this case, consider that Canada. You just have to transfer a few place names. All the mechanics work. Because I was just too lazy to go through and make a new set of cards.
Okay.
But if people like this game, I'd love to make a set of cards. That would be a blast.
Yeah, I was just curious because you're playing with the map, but you're playing with the cards, and it's all specific to Colombia, right? You're like,
Yeah, but you'd be surprised how easily it translates. I was surprised. I looked at it, like, oh, well, that would work,
moving pieces. You had mentioned sort of like naming, like trying to make maybe a neutral style of game just by renaming the cards of Andean Abyss to like Colonel, essentially like clue names, right? Colonel Mustard and whatnot. Just because 20 years in the future, it's not really foreseeable exactly who would be in charge of these different factions, and
yeah. See, what I did is I made so Coin is kind of tough for people to learn. I made a student edition that is a really, really simple game. And with that, I included 4 kind of characters, blue, red, yellow, and green. And in order to help, like, I don't know, high school kids and college kids kind of get into what they're doing. So the government is run by President Blue. Okay, President Blue is just trying to keep everything in shape. Colonel Red is whoever the, rebels are, running the rebels. And there's Agent Yellow, who used to work for the government and is now out making his own army. And then Dr. Green, the former pharmaceuticals guy who is now running a drug cartel. And by the way, I was careful to do it so it could be girls or boys. So,
oh, great. Yes. Make the cards double-sided. Yes. Yeah. And make them like, make them political cartoon looking things too, like the ones that are all exaggerate the ears and the nose and the tufted hair.
Absolutely. So it would be cool, like if anybody used that at a high school, you could have the kids play it, and then they'd have a good time. And I played it with my students, and they were all like, I'm going to kill you. And it was a lot of fun. But you realize the game, once people learn how it works, it like never ends, which is like the point. It just goes on forever.
Well, yeah, because everybody sort of starts to get close, and then the rest of the table sort of goes whap, 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 and then usually what brings it to its end is that, like, we'll see that there's somebody who makes a decision like Andy does, where he's like, okay, I'm doing this and setting it all up to where this person will win unless I draw the perfect card right now. And if I draw this perfect card right now, I win. And then it's like, people just decide that there's a timer and I'm ready to pull the trigger on, I'm going to win or lose right now.
Yeah.
Poof.
That was a beautiful win.
And he won. Yeah. Andy.
Okay. That's actual history. All right.
And shot. Like, the next card must be the, whatever. Not, I want to say topple, but that's just because I placed too much packs.
It's like propaganda or some Cuba Libre. Yeah, I'm like, if it's the propaganda card, I win. If it's not, this other guy's probably gonna win. But in a way, that's thematic though, because like I was playing one of the rebel factions, and in those situations, you kind of like set up. You're gonna get like basically one shot at the win.
Well, if you're going for the propaganda win, typically, yeah.
Well, I usually go in general though, like rebel cells, they're not mainline governments with lots of troops to draw on. Like,
you're not gonna have a stranglehold very easily. Maybe that's what.
Yeah, they're gonna get their shot, and if they fail, like they're done. Like, people are gonna take you out.
Yeah, I have seen though. I mean, just to compare it to Root, because Root's, like I have still not played a coin game enough, not a single coin game, nor have I played the coin system enough to really start to distill it down to its, to its separate parts. But with Root, I've never seen the Woodland faction, the Woodland Alliance faction, do what I saw like 2 games ago. They just strangled everyone. It was just like they were out there and just had a commanding lead at the start. I thought, oh boy, that's a bad idea. You're going to get targeted. And then no, they're just able to keep on rolling, and it was crazy. And it was an easy win. So I mean, like, and that's a faction that usually is like this tiny little slow murder ball, but this was out swinging, hit landing big punches by round 3. You never know.
Yeah, the Andean Abyss is the coin game I've played the most, and this is why this map is very intriguing to me. And it's also interesting that it's always interesting that Andean Abyss came first, and different designers and different people can look at that game and that rule set through their own prism and see an entirely different game and design it, and it works. I mean, that's the strength of this system, at least for the initial run. And Andean Abyss is the one I played the most, and it does feel like it's imbalanced because each faction has a particular way to handle the other one. And for Andean Abyss, it was the cartels that I thought was the hardest, but that's actually my favorite to play because they're a slow build. And my favorite move in Andean Abyss with the cartels is just cash everything out right off the bat, because the wicked condition for the cartels that have so much money, and doing that, you're immediately not a target for a long time, and you just quietly build stuff up and set people up against each other, and before you know it, as long as you can keep the government distracted, because they have that missile that can nuke anything, but it's a valuable action they got to take. But if you can like stay in the shells like a cartel should be with your little troops and like manipulate things, you can pull out a win. But you can't typically do it on a propaganda win. You've got to go for the long game with those guys. But that's the interesting about coin and with Root and all that is that it rewards replayability. And with our guest here, I'm always fascinated with the prism they see these coin games and how they can make their own thing. Because I mean, but like you said, coin games are like that, like 9-10 games. They all play similarly, but they're their own unique beast, and they play differently. Yet they share a common DNA with the system, and that's it's great. And this map I'm looking at right now, I'm just like, oh man, if you could get like with GMT and get cards and get this thing going, this would be fantastic. Because I'm so familiar with Andean Abyss, it'd be nice to have a really strong variant to play with that game.
Yeah,
get it printed on the back side of the board for the next time they make
I would get my own. I would take a paper map and put it over plexiglass. I don't care.
Yeah, that's how I've played it. I mean, and it's fun. There's this kind of weird, visceral thrill of like planning a sabotage on a highway that you've driven back and forth on a lot, or like.
Well, because you've done it so many times in other coin games, and then now you're getting to do it in your own backyard.
Right,
Yeah.
And I think what the coin games are capturing is like there's this fundamental dynamic of cluster F.
Yep.
Conflict.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank you for that. Yeah.
You've got the 3 to 5 factions, and it's just a mess. And we see it everywhere, right? The American Revolution, Afghanistan, Vietnam.
And then like each faction has like a little bit in common with another one, so they want to work together a little bit up to a point, and then it's just like they want to murder each other after that point hits. It's like we're done. We're enemies forever.
These games are the only ones that have captured what happened to war after World War II. I like war games, but before World War II, it was just like, you have your army, I have my army, I want to kill you, you want to kill me, let's go. And we'll know at the end. And what's so frustrating to folks like me is like, okay, so now for the last 60 years, there's been fighting, but I have no idea what kind of fighting is this. And finally, Coin comes along, you're like, oh, that's what it is. It's like this weird carousel.
Yeah, and the one thing
stand-up battles anymore.
Yeah, and the one thing Coin does, at least in the first initial ones, and they've kind of gotten away with this with the difference, is that aside, and it's kind of interesting because it ties back to Here I Stand. The big unique thing that Here I Stand did was the religious conflict, right? Integrating that into and what Coin did is it add the population. How the population reacts to your government is a huge. That's a part of your victory condition. If you're the government, you want support. It doesn't matter how well. In fact, if you go and massacre like the wrong things, you will lose the popular support if you do things that bad. And then conversely, there's another faction that wants opposition, and that focus on the population. For me, anyway, was like a really strong hook into the coin system because
that's what's so different. I'm glad you said that. It's like Stalin didn't have that problem.
No.
Yeah, well, ever since Napoleon, a nation state just puts its full force towards the war effort and just essentially pumps into the meat grinder, and then you see that immediately change after World War II as the world's in shock of how fighting is changed, and so anymore there's always sort of like a hidden element of just you can't be out in the open fighting anymore. So these conflicts go to remote areas, like you've mentioned, like the jungles and the Badlands of the U.S. is where you've taken the jungles of the Andean Abyss.
Yeah, and that's totally what would happen here. That is totally what would happen here. I mean, I have relatives who would be in the woods at the first weekend.
I mean, you're playing a rebel. I was going to say, you're playing a rebel faction. You're not going to be able to go toe to toe with a government force. That's just you're going to get wiped. So what does the rebel faction do? It goes after the population to get with terrorist acts, to turn the population against the government, and that's the strategy in a large part to some of these factions, and that's what the Coin series is about, counterinsurgency, and that's.
What's neat to that, though, is if you look at Pendragon, like that element is really reduced. Like there's some kind of devastation things you can do as the Saxons, but the whole I'm gonna snake, like most of the coin games, you have like the pieces you want them flipped down, they're hidden and flip up when you do.
Be exposed.
None of that in Pendragon.
Yeah, even I think a distant plane doesn't have the multiplier to the faction your support usually gets or opposition because the population either is so sparse or has just been so brutalized by what's going on, it just doesn't matter anymore. So, like I said, the different iterations handle that differently, but just in the core game, that first one, that's what really hooked me into this system in general. Was it how important it was to the population support and opposition? That was really fascinating.
Yeah, I really like how they do it in Falling Sky because the biggest thing that it took me to get my head around that game was that for most coin games, what would be cities you take over where you put your discs. In Falling Sky, it's tribes.
Tribes, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if I put my disc on here, that's not a city I control. It's a tribe that I have bought off or that I've convinced that I am the one that should be in charge.
Yeah, that's Falling Sky is so. I had to like rank all my favorite, it would be so hard because Falling Sky does, it's ancient warfare, and they took like a system that's supposed to cover a modern insurgency. Like, you know what, we can apply this to ancient warfare. It's like, what? And it worked. It was great.
Well, yeah, and they did that even in Pendragon now to coin systems mimic siege warfare. I'm just like, how's that gonna work? Then right, I'm like,
even Liberty or Death took it to the American Revolution with musket rifles and stuff, and so it's just interesting to see the permutations. And
I thought Fire in the Lake was brilliant.
Fire in the Lake is really good.
I mean, I don't know if it's the very best system application, but I know when I play that game, I feel like I understand the Vietnam War in a way that I never did growing up.
Yeah,
I understand what that was.
Yeah, especially that one, because growing up, Vietnam was kind of like this subject you didn't quite broach, especially since my dad was involved with it. But after playing that game, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I get that, and why they couldn't cross over, and all the politics going on, and the constant leadership turnover in South. It was, oh man,
why you couldn't. Again, if your model is World War II, it's like, okay, why are we not lining up our tanks and marching forward and conquering the land? And it's like, you play that game, you're like, oh, that wouldn't work.
And then, like, when you're playing the Americans, you're like super powerful, but your victory condition is as many troops as you can pull off the board. Yeah. That's a victory condition. It's like you can go in as America and just run rampant in there, but you're not going to win the game if you do that in a Fire in the Lake, because that's not your victory condition, not part of it.
Yeah, but I think that's like the interesting thing about historical war games is they allow some people, there's some people that are like, oh, how can you play that? You're glorifying war or something. But for me, it's not, because like, for me, one of the most fun experiences I can have doing anything is something that also causes me to learn or rethink something that I've thought before, which is what I like about some of the historically based games is not only, it's kind of fun, I'm winning the game, but you're like, okay, I'm thinking differently about this now. Like having that tactile engagement and working through the problem is different than just reading it in a textbook. Like the thing that for me really got that was when Trent and I have been playing Conflict of Heroes Guadalcanal, and I've been playing the Japanese, and how the game incentivizes me to do tactically stupid things. Like, because the Japanese did a lot of human wave attacks, and if you're gonna use your chits to highest efficiency, you wouldn't do that. But the game's like, but here's the carrot on the stick, and the lash behind you that's going to force you to play like this, and why, and you start getting into the idea of some cultural elements that led to it and things like that. Mm-hmm. But in kind of what you're doing, even, you're like, taking this concept of what would a historical game look like and using it instead as a predictive element.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would really hope people would not think of the next Civil War as being like the last one, because it's still, we tend to think of it, people at that time were like, it's horrible. But, now with retrospect, we look and say, oh, noble lines of blue and gray marching across the fields. Oh, I'm hit.
Get all your AR-15s and march in a packed line at the enemy
with tiki torches.
Oh yeah! By the way, you got to go to the tent, the Red Cross tent, where they don't wash their hands, patient after patient, and hope to God you survive that after getting hit with a bowling ball. Yeah.
What is like efforts to actually give citizens aid and stuff? I mean, it's a very you wouldn't imagine it to be that same sort of. As people think about a civil war and they start to get almost nostalgic about and it's like, no, that's horrible. Like, seriously, There is nothing you can think of that would be worse than what you were imagining, and you're imagining it fondly.
Well, they're thinking. I think today the commentators are sort of thinking like, enough of this discussion and fighting. It's time to put swords behind our words. And I'm like, no, it'll be so dirty. It would suck.
Yeah,
it's easy to say when you're not the one in the front line. I had a history professor that said that too. He's like, why wars go on forever? It's because leaders of countries aren't on the front line anymore. It's like, battle. Oh, the king's dead. Done. Let's go home.
Yeah, I feel like back, and this is, I feel like it used to be where you could be political opponents but still have like a mutual respect, and that sort of like, respect and that sort of acceptance that in this country we really do tend to, spend some time on this side and spend some time on that side, and somehow in the end we all end up sort of swayed with at least somewhere in our headlights is at least things that at times bring us together, and we just. Anything that questions to or tries to bring us together is immediately so like just brushed away by anybody that like it's just like, oh, this is just an attempt. It's an attempt. It's a smear. It's a some sort of a conspiracy.
Joe, you hit on it. That's what we need, is to be invaded by aliens, because that would bring us all together.
And is that what you call the propaganda card in
it's game like Democrats, Republicans, shoulder to shoulder, fighting the evil octopus face guy.
No, like
there you go, man. There's your expansion.
Like legitimately similar to that, I saw a cartoon. It was like a critique of the space program, and it showed China on the moon kicking over the American flag and going, "If this happened, we would so be there in a matter of months."
Nice. You pay the Chinese to kick over a flag on Mars.
Yeah, I think Neil Tyson even said that once. It's like, you want to get Americans there, basically, like the Chinese need to say we're going to do it and like hold up the flag that they're going to get there first, and like America be like, what? No way. No, we'll get there now.
Yeah, freedom first.
But I could see where like a situation that you're talking about could develop, though, because along with the binary thing now, you also have political factions and groups that, there's almost like an ideology test to be the candidate that runs nowadays. You can't be, if you're a candidate that's going, look, we need to compromise, we need to get where they're like, no, you're not pure.
Yeah.
Like they don't want to run you. And
you're not going to represent us if you're going to be mealy mouthed like that.
Right.
Two historical points. One is, and I kind of keep my eye out for this. Before the Civil War, the thing that really got violent was when one senator took a cane to the other on the floor of the Senate and like almost killed him with the cane. And I'm like, and that was a real precursor of like, people have just had it. And I'm like waiting for, Susan Collins to kick Schumer in the nuts or something like that.
That's what it'll be like
whatever it would,
the kick heard round the world, the nut shot heard round the world.
Well, and even within a coin game system, not only would you have like the potential as a, on the survivalist faction. I mean, you could even have like the big money faction. It's like the companies that are sitting back there and profiting by paying the other factions to do things.
Oh, dude, for a while that was green. For a while I thought that would be the green faction, right? Business as usual. You guys keep fighting. No taxes.
It's like, oh, look, another shooting. Great. Profits for gun sales.
Well, it can work in almost to both possibilities, That's like, it's almost like that's
arms dealers make the most profit if they make sure they're selling to both sides.
So, all right. So then exactly. The second historical thing is in Weimar Germany, before Hitler. I mean, what had happened is the two radical parties, it became an existential fight. It's like one or the other had to destroy the other because they were both saying, we're going to take over. When we do, we're going to just destroy the country that you like. They were both saying that to each other. And, you wonder to what extent you hear people on both the left and the right saying, if those people keep power, it's going to destroy everything that we love. And that you're sort of saying politics is like live or die. I mean,
I've never seen it where it's just like, there's such a push to, people always vote for their candidates, and you expect that the country, in every location is trying to vote for the person that is best to represent their own interests where they are at, but that's not what it's like now. It's like, right now we've got to band together because we're dealing with the liberal commie invasion, or band together to deal with the fascist, the fascist Trump nationalists that are coming, and everybody, it's just like that.
Well, or even related to that, like one of the things I adamantly refuse to do is to provide money for elections that don't take place in my own state. So you get people there's like, no, Iowans, you got to make sure California elections turn out like this. I'm like, I'm not in California.
But they can do whatever they want.
but no,
it's like everybody sees every election is like, it's just about these battleground elections. It doesn't matter if you really are unhappy and you live in an area where your candidate's horrible, your only choice is, let me give halfway across the state, or halfway across the country.
My wife grew up in Oklahoma. She didn't know what having candidates come visit your state was even about until she moved to Iowa.
Yeah, it's like, what's with the Iowa picking everybody? What's with that?
We really suck at it, dude. We suck at it. So please, I'm sick of this responsibility. Honestly, as an Iowan, I'm sick of the responsibility that's it's like a formality on a form that made us first. And for some reason, it became just common practice that it was always going to be this way. And I feel kind of like it's almost like everybody else is so pissed at us because, why do you get to choose so much? Why do you matter? Why do you get to see politicians? It's like, I don't want to. I really don't. And I don't want all the attention. And I don't want all the responsibility, man.
We literally cut our landline service 3 weeks ago just to be done with it.
Oh, man, they're on the phone. They're on the mobiles now. They're on the mobiles. And this last, they started with don't hang up.
But even related to that, though, talking about the movements within the board game, another thing that takes advantage of it is you've got to have a region that has a lot of dissatisfaction already. People ask me, it's well, how could this person win? How could I'm like, because there's a lot of angry people, and angry people can be controlled. It's if Germany after World War I, everything was hunky-dory, Hitler never gets power because he's he's fear-mongering everybody, and everyone's just like, dude, chill, life's fine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just see the man, it's almost like because of that, it becomes even more scary and but that's it's almost like knowledge of the past is what's pushing us further to the side because it's we can't let that happen. But it's we're cherry picking the past events that we use. In most cases, it's not a holistic approach. It's remember that demon from the past? That's who you're becoming.
Well, I had a history professor that basically asks why study history, and the first answer is always, so we don't repeat it. And he's like, no, there's no evidence we've ever learned that lesson. He's
we've observed
we study
lessons,
history
never
to
learned
see
them.
how completely dumb we've been as a species.
History is just a reallocation of misery.
That's really
nice.
But yeah, no, I do like the coin games and how they do that kind of stuff, and they can model, and it might be interesting to see how it could apply to modern conflicts or predictive ones.
There's one asymmetry in the game as I played it. So I mentioned the two, there's the NRA versus the government thing versus the Antifa versus government. NRA versus government one lasts a lot longer because their base of dissatisfaction, what you were just talking about, is in the mountains, right? It's harder to find people in the mountains. Whereas the other group is more urban. Mm-hmm. And in any coin system, the easiest place to kill the rebels is in the cities.
Yeah.
You just instantly summon 1 million blues and you just kill them. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all there.
So if that system is true, that means that there's an asymmetry there in how bad it could be. If it's a right-wing versus a left-wing government, it could last a long time, and the other way, it would be bloody, but it would.
It makes sense, man. You should make the, like Montana and some of those places where there's entrenched, so there's already it's there's already sort of attempts to form colonies that are going to be essentially at some point autonomous, at least have some level of autonomy. So.
You know how it works in Andean Abyss. You can only pacify an area if you can somehow get police in there.
Yeah, they gotta have police.
and it's hard to do, and it's the same thing applied to the United States. Somehow you've got to get the light blue cubes out of the cities out to Montana.
You have to bring the order because otherwise the people that are there will sell order, and together with the order they sell, they've got support for them now.
Yeah, it's insane. Like in Tennessee, my parents live there. And my dad saw on TV like several years ago when they did the census that for the eastern part of the state, which is, up in the Smoky Mountains and all that, they were paying like extremely good money to census workers to go find kind of the, we live up in the hills and don't come down peoples. And they were literally having to issue them bulletproof armor because they were being shot at.
Holy crap, man.
Government, man. Get off my land. Government.
Get off my land.
Well, and here's one thing, though, that's kind of interesting, or, something I was just thinking about is if you were going to make alternate maps like this and whatnot, would you lose something if you took it too far to the extreme? So, like in your scenario, it's still plausibly connected to real life. But I was thinking, what was it they did on GMT? Was it like they basically was like, here I stand in space or whatever it was?
What?
Okay.
I don't know if it was that, or it was based on Triumph and Tragedy. It was like Triumph and Tragedy, but no history, all space things. And I look at that, I just don't even find that idea as compelling.
IP 500, that one.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you're adding an element of fiction, but like I don't know. I saw, like, when you described the American Abyss to me, I really do want to see, like, I mean, you've already got this interstate system that draws me into it, and look, your map looks cool. So I mean, it was like visually, it's going to draw you in. If you guys see this, seriously, look at the graphic of the map. If you've made it available, Ted, is there any place where our listeners can
go to my website? Okay, edwardcastronova.com, and there's a link there to Andean American Abyss. So if you just go there, and you can download all the materials. It's free.
Like, show it to the CIA. They might like have you come in, like, because isn't that what like the Volca does? He like basically makes training simulations for like the FBI and CIA as part of his gig.
I think it'd be cool, but self promotion takes time, and I like my naps.
Yeah. Well, this one
I like my free time.
Really cool. It's a cool project, but I think for many, Ted, it is going to be still in the abstract until you have a card deck. So, I mean, that's my way of putting that sort of positive reinforcement and pressuring. But like for some people, because I mean, I've seen the map. I know what you mean by the visualizing of the different like units, and you're already seeing like within the mechanics, like you can lay on events, especially in sort of a hypothetical nature. You can lay those onto existing events and make sense out of them, especially if they tie to certain regions. You just think about what's the industry in this region, what's the politics of this region. Maybe it even in some way creates a difference in the way that it behaves. It's not already different because the map itself is a huge part of coin games. And if like for a lot of people, the difference in coin games, even though they do have much beyond the map themselves, the factions, of course, but also just having different maps is a cool thing. Like Cuba's like playing on a snake.
Yeah. Well, okay, I like that idea of making new cards. That would be a fun thing to do when I get some time. Let me tell you something about cards. So, you guys ever played Making of the President 1960? That
just was reviewed. Trent and Andy played that recently.
I like that.
So I reskinned it in 2012 to make it appropriate for the 2012 election. Changing the electoral votes and changing some of the cards.
I heard about that.
Yeah, and that was fun to do. But one thing I just cracked up. I was going through the cards like, oh, this would be this would be this. And then there's the card that says late returns from Cook County, Illinois. I'm like, oh no, that stays the same. That's always that way. It was that way 100 years ago. It'll be that way 100 years from now.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting, like, just to think about the events that are happening right now, and you could see like what's Chicago going to look like in 20 years, especially if we keep down the path that it looks like we're heading now, and that everybody warns us. So I think Trent was clearing his throat to tell us exactly what the answer to my question was.
No, actually, I was going to ask about So the only game I can think of that anywhere near the theme of your game that you've described as Fortress America. What are your thoughts on
Right.
Fortress America?
Yeah, a couple of people have mentioned that. I didn't play that one. I played Invasion America, the old SPI back in the 70s. So I don't know if you guys remember. This is hilarious, right? The Russians and Europeans invade us from the east.
Yep.
The Chinese invade us from the west, and the South Americans invade us from the south. And
which is so plausible, yeah.
Yeah. Like where they got the navies, I don't know. But but I never played Fortress America, so I don't really know. I don't know much about it, but other people have mentioned it.
It sounds like that.
Yeah.
I would say that, to what extent, though, is the people that picture Fortress America as being the real war game description of what you're talking about? The actual American,
Right.
The actual future Civil War. And those are the same people, though, that may be out there saying coin games by themselves are not really war games.
Well, actually, that's a good point because they are mixed political, economic, military simulations. But I'll eat my hat if it turns out that there's something called a front between, I don't know, Indiana and New York, and that you can get behind enemy lines. That's not going to happen. Everywhere is behind enemy lines.
Yeah, no.
But if it does happen, I'll eat my hat.
I was thinking, though,
right here.
like, if you could get the game published, it'd be, like, the perfect game to play over Thanksgiving, because those horrible conversations are going to come up anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm using my full turn to attack you.
Yeah. All right, very cool. Well, so Ted, thanks for telling us, about this expansion map, and also you've made everything that we've discussed here readily available to anybody who wants to access these materials, together with a like educational sort of trying to dumb down the game. I don't want to say dumb down. That sounds terrible. I mean,
no,
I'm teaching.
What it is. Yeah.
It's a simplified version that's more palatable for maybe your game night, or if you've got kids that you're trying to use as a teaching tool. It's cool the things that you've done to try to make this more accessible as a tool. So also fascinating discussion, and I love the idea of this, and I hope that maybe some encouragement from us and hopefully from others that check it out, maybe those that listen to this, maybe you'll be able to encourage Ted, hey, like these are some of the things that I saw, and maybe this is a direction you could take with, especially if you're an expert in Andean Abyss and you give this a shot, maybe you notice some of the differences and can comment on maybe some ideas for the cards. Maybe you even get some help on there, and maybe Ted will give you some credit with the work and then making the game. Who knows?
Some map help would be good too. If people would just say, this is not playing, like the transportation doesn't play the same way. I'd love to hear that too.
Okay. So you'd like to hear comments about it. So absolutely, you can help this project in the process, and maybe get your name, kind of like TC's wife, is already in the Liberty or Death rulebook. Maybe you'll pop up in the rulebook for one down the road. Who never knows? Or maybe it'll just be the actual 2040. And Ted Castronova writes his autobiography saying, it's just called "I Told You So." Like, look, I made this 22 years ago. I said this was going to happen, and it did. Well, you've covered both bases by saying either extreme, and I think we can agree that like anything, saving what we have is definitely going to promote stability, and at least then you won't have to worry about the fourth and scariest faction, which is the drug dealers that basically take advantage of the political instability. So they're basically like the scavengers. Do you want to be scavenged? Do you want to be like run through by those that are just looking to benefit from your suffering? Well,
no.
Suffer.
I don't.
no, you don't. The answer is no, hopefully. Suffer by playing the game instead. I don't know. I don't know where it's going with that. But anyway, cool stuff, man. It was a great talk. And we finished these episodes by hyping a game that we're looking forward to. So since this isn't something that I remember saying to you before, I will give you the honors of being the last one to go, Ted, and give you a chance to rest your voice a little bit. But we will instead take it off by hearing from Trent about what we talked a little bit about before, but I want to hear from you, Trent, because you weren't on the episode when it was the first time I'd heard of it.
Yeah, I'm hyping a Dominant Species Marine because Dominant Species is one of my favorite games of all time, And yeah, I wasn't on the episode where they were like going, ooh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was. So it was pretty gushy.
I've actually looked at it really carefully. It looks a lot like Dominant Species, except one big change. There's one big change that's really got me thinking about how this is going to work. Whereas in Dominant Species, you put the pieces on the board and then go through and resolve all of them. This one, it's live resolution. You put the piece down and you resolve it.
Yeah, there's no like worker placement track on it anymore.
Well, I mean, there is, but it's like you just do it, I guess is the way of putting it, rather than like just waiting until the end of the round. And that's a very big change from how Dominant Species works. I got mixed feelings about it, but I'm still interested because I like how much Dominant Species is. I don't know.
Yeah, have you seen that they're going to be actually, you can get other pawns that only you can use to displace other pawns that are already out on the board?
Yes.
You're turning Dominant Species into Argent.
That's got me intrigued. I agree with you, Trent. This one's got me really fascinated. I'm going to call it right now that it's going to be like, Dominant Species is a better game. This new one's too different. I don't like it. But I think
I've heard this one's like a push to maybe make it a little bit more accessible than Dominant Species is.
So maybe it's a step into it. And that might be right then, TC.
Yeah, I know this is going to be, I'm willing to put money down that this is going to be polarizing, but I don't care. I love Dominant Species. I even like the card game. I'm intrigued to see what's going on. I'm right there with
PC just wants Trent. To be sharks.
Yeah, sure. I'm right there with Trent. I'm on board for this one. I'm very curious to see how these are implemented, but it sounds like you took a closer look at it than I did, Trent.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that I noticed.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference. And from what you guys have said, then that means that there's definitely going to be more here than just a simple like, ooh, cool, more Dominant Species. They're definitely making some changes. That's a very fundamental change to the way the game resolves. But I still really want to try it, guys. I like you, Trent, love Dominant Species.
Sure do.
Oh, yeah, it's so fantastic. Speaking of games that we love, there is a currently running expansion on Kickstarter right now. It's a currently running Kickstarter that's an expansion to Spirit Island, which is one of, in my opinion, the most beautiful, heavy cooperative games out there. It's one that I think you can pull in people who aren't going to otherwise be interested at all in the idea of a cooperative game. But I think you'll pull in more people just because of how well crafted this game is. Spirit Island Jagged Earth includes, for the base 4 heroes, or for the base 8 heroes, 4 of them, the kind of 4 boring ones, now have like variant extra abilities you can play with. So there's that by itself. Then 8 new I said heroes, I meant spirits. 8 new spirits that all function differently. And then it also functions kind of like an extension of the existing expansion, Branch and Claw, which I'm kind of not a huge fan of, but it looks to me like they're trying to give options to be able to play without some of the elements of Branch and Claw, but also still then expand upon what's already there, which that's my main issue with Branch and Claws. There's some elements that may or may not even really matter, and I kind of dislike that. I'm not a huge fan of how the beasts work, but we'll see how that continues to change as we see more viability of races that sort of symbiotically manipulate the beast, and it's not where you have to play with a whole specific combination to really make the beast mechanic matter. So, but that's just one minor little thing that I'm kind of hopeful that this expansion is going to continue to develop. We also see the ability to play up to 5 and 6. I'm not going to do that. Is anybody here stupid enough to do that? Is that like I will not play this game with even barely with 4. I think I would never want to play it with more than like 3. So, but just because of how much there is going on, if everybody knew it, maybe I'd play it with more. But yeah, to me, this Spirit Island is just it's my spirit. It's my spirit animal. For now, it's a great game. If you've never checked it out, and you must mainly play war games, Ted, speaking directly to you, this is one of those, if you want to get your feet wet with the system that's going to have your Euro stuff, that's going to have also the ability to play as spirits fighting off historical invaders, maybe a little touch of your adversaries, which can add like the Kingdom of Norway or the Kingdom of Britain. And yeah, the way that they work is supposed to be how they, So Spirit Island, Jagged Earth, which is the newest expansion coming out that's going to add content to both the base game and the first expansion, develop a little bit more, which I'm very excited to see.
Do you get to spend a token to get a thing that gives you more tokens?
more actions. Sorry, it's more actions, and they're super important, and they actually make the game matter, and not just, oh, you mean I'm gonna pick up a yellow token? How's that work? Oh, just like the blue token, only it's this group. Oh, sure, okay. That's the picks. These are the jutes. Wait, which one's which? Yeah. What are these numbers on top of this hex? Yeah, Ted. Yeah, Ted. Well, it's not your turn. You have to wait your turn. I said you'd be last. And now let's move on then to TC. You here have a game that is hopefully not just going to be a war game that's set in space, because we've already crapped on those.
Here's the thing. I just found out. I just finally opened up my GMT newsletter, started reading it, and I read, to my surprise, that Space Corps is going to be charging in 2 days on the 27th. Now, why is Space Corps interesting to me? Well, it's a John Butterfield game. If you're an old-time grognard like myself or our guest, you know that this guy is like, he's an old-school war gamer who did the Hex and Chits and all that stuff. And then I was like, okay, this was the other game set in space. Started looking at it.
Space Force, the board.
No, actually, it's not, because it looks like it's a space exploration economic style game that's been developed by Chad and Kai Jensen.
Ooh,
right? So I'm just like, holy
dominant species.
Yeah, they're claiming it's like a fast-playing board game where you're exploring and building resources. It's like the exact opposite game I would expect out of a Butterfield design, and that alone has me very excited about it, because I love it when designers try something different. This could be a spectacular failure, but I don't care. It's going to be something unique. And I think this is a game we're going to be to take a closer look at down the road, because I have been excited about this one since it was announced about 2 or 3 years ago.
What's really cool, too, is like the 3 maps. So you can play like this campaign situation. So like the first map is near Earth, so like Moon, Mars. And then the second map is the whole solar system. And then like the third map is, now that we've explored the whole solar system, we've developed like intersolar system travel, like warp drive or something, and you can upgrade each one. And I think they said you can just stop too. Like if you want to play a quick game, you just play the first map and then you're done.
And the play counts like 1 to 4, so it looks like it's going to have some type of solitaire play in it too. So this is, guys, this is one to keep an eye on. This is either going to be good, mediocre, or really bad. I don't know where this is going to fall, but I am on board for this one. Just for the design and the ambition of this thing alone.
Yeah, this was one of my unfortunate budget cuts, and I'm like, that. Yeah, I hated having to take that off because it looked like so up my alley.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be your High Frontier plus.
No. High Frontier is still way worse. I've looked at some of the basic rules set for Space Corps. Like, no, you can reasonably teach this to people and play it at a game night rather than here's the 60-page manual you must read before we set.
Yeah, because they're claiming this. I think they said it's like an hour per scenario or per map is what they were claiming on it.
So you can play you can either do the 1, the 2 hour, 3 hour.
1 hour per era. Yeah, so I think this is going to surprise people. I'm really hoping to be really pleasantly surprised by this one, because I was listening to a podcast somewhere and I kept hearing there's not a lot of innovation and things aren't innovative and things are just the same. Like, dude, you're looking in the wrong place. You just got to look at the right places to find cool stuff. And I'm hoping this is one of the cool things that's going to come out this year.
Yeah, it looked like it was a lot of like hand management, and like there were cards that could be used for like this or this. So it was like planning that out. Yeah.
Well, very cool, man. That's Space Corps, which is the what they maybe should have called the Space Force.
Space Force. Well, we'll find out. Only if we can pew pew in space.
First mission of Space Force is to put a giant gold Trump name on the moon. It's
the new hotel. And then there will be activists blasting stuff on the side of it before long. It'll be a fight over the moon. Except it'll be once they develop the ability to build a projector that can literally project onto the moon from Earth, and then it becomes the fight of the battle over the moon.
Yep.
which will not even be able to be made by GMT because it'll just be Eurogame. It'll be, oh, you're in my way. I'm going to shove you out of the way and take that. All right.
I got here first.
Well, Andy, you take us back to the beginning.
What? Oh, this isn't the beginning. That was BIOS Genesis. Anyway.
Technically, that's a science brain right there. The beginning of what? I didn't say the beginning of anything. I just said the beginning and kept it ambiguous. You took it places. That's your fault. That's not me. I meant the beginning of whatever it's the beginning of. It's called Origins. That's a synonym. It's a synonym. It's a synonym for origin.
Yeah. So anyway, the BIOS Origins Kickstarter is going to be hitting, and I think the 28th, so in about 3 days. So this is Sierra Madre Games, and I think Ion Games now, like they partnered up or something like that. But it's basically the third one in the BIOS line. So it started with BIOS Genesis, BIOS Megafauna 2 came out, and now this is BIOS Origins. So this takes off where BIOS Megafauna left out with kind of the develop of human civilization. So like going from, like little Australopithecine things all the way up to sort of a modern era. I'm really interested in this one because it's like the one I had zero experience with. So BIOS Genesis was kind of like that, but BIOS Megafauna I played first edition, so it was kind of like, okay, well, this is new, but I can recognize pieces of it. I never did get a chance to play the original Origins game that came out there, and so I'm really interested in this one, and I think they're tacking on to it 2 other games that you can buy in any combination of them. So BIOS Origins is the one I'm going to get. Also PAX Transhumanity, which is also a look into potentially near future stuff where, I don't know, transhumanisty things happen.
There was a game that Ion Studios is, I don't know, it was Expedition
like
Zeta.
Space one, yeah.
That one looks pretty interesting. I have to say, I was looking at Expedition Zeta, and I'm like,
Yeah, my general philosophy right now is I'm not buying any more space exploration games till I actually play something in High Frontier.
No.
But anyway, so you can get any combination of these. So it's going to be PAX Transhumanity, BIOS Origins, or they're actually doing a reprint as well of the PAX Porphyriana Deluxe Edition.
I didn't get my hands on that one.
Yeah, so no, that's going to be eaten up really fast, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of. And from what I've seen, like in that one, there's going to be no real difference between that and the old deluxe, except if they get enough money, potential better card stock or something. Yeah, I imagine there'll be a lot of jumping on this one. The one thing I'm just hoping for is that they find a competent shipping partner for once.
Mm-hmm. Well, Andy, when there's enough mistakes, you kind of maybe need to go to the source.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, they finally went to Panda for the components, and that's been better. But yeah, like I had a tracking notice for my games since October 2nd, and they were just sitting in a warehouse in Hong Kong. The good thing was they weren't in Australia. They knew all the games were in Hong Kong. Just for whatever reason, the warehouse wasn't sending them anywhere. But yeah, that's still better than was it? Yeah, BIOS Megafauna 2. No, it was the BIOS Genesis upgrade where literally my copy had bypassed the United States and was sitting in Australia for a while.
I personally like the fulfillment of BIOS Megafauna 2 where they randomly sent me a copy of it.
Yeah, Trent got a free game.
Oops.
Because they were supposed to send me John Company, and then they accidentally sent me. And then I was like, okay, so what do you want me to do about that? They're like, oh, just keep it. We'll send you a John Company. I'm like, so okay. So now I have BIOS Megafauna, and it's just mine, and there we go. Hooray.
Yeah. And then also there were like stores that were like, why didn't I get all my copies? And the answer was because the shipper sent them all accidentally to people and didn't want to deal with paying them shipped back.
Well, that was like, did I tell you I got my copy of John Company? I just inquired about it. I was like, hey, do you have any? I went to Sierra Madre. I was like, do you have John Company? And I didn't hear anything. And then like 3 weeks later, I got a package of it at my doorstep. I was like, did I pay for this? I didn't pay for anything. So I'm like, okay. So I had to say that's like, how much do I owe you for this? Because you didn't charge me for it, but I got it.
Wow, honesty, man.
Yeah,
it's not been, their Kickstarters have not been the best so far. But well, you're partnered with the shipping end of game. Salute, so you get what you pay for. What can I say?
Yeah, it could be, man, but I don't know. There's definitely a lot of people that fervently support them, as like those that I interviewed at
Game
Gen
Salute
Con.
or Sierra Madre?
Game Salute.
Oh, yeah.
Game Salute, like they definitely are considered a player in the business. Like it's largely an online, like, you people who are on the Kickstarter and on the Board Game Geek forums where they really go crazy. But like when it comes down to it, there's a lot of sides to these stories, and one of them is the the narrative that emerges online, but you never know, especially when people are continuing to work with them. Maybe there's more to the story. So I'm just saying, I'm not saying that I have any evidence. I'm just saying that they're definitely still a player out there. And there's a lot of things like they've even started a company that just basically is there to help unload their inventory that, was extra inventory that they're essentially just storing for people that they're doing the Kickstarter for. And they're like those board game grab boxes, which to me sounds terrible. I research my purchases because the most important resource to me is my time. And I'm not going to just open a box and be like, oh, hey, look at this game. Let's try it. It's not going to work for me. But anyway, the fact that they're trying innovations like that, I don't know, man. There could be more to it. I'm just saying. You never know. Maybe our economists should weigh in.
The market price is competitive and efficient.
Is that the canned statement? I don't have anything real to say, so
yeah, everything's efficient. Yeah.
Well, now that you got
ended up in Australia, it was really more efficient to send them to Australia, back to the United States, and then
for reasons.
For reasons. It's like
it's a tax thing.
An economic model can be designed in which that's optimal.
Yeah,
which is true of every state.
I ordered something from California on like Amazon, and it first went to Hawaii.
Yep.
Before going back to California to make its way across the United States.
If we can work out a way for all of our games to ship to Australia first, I'm pretty sure David from Grail Games, who's based in Australia and struggles with a market that's non-existent in a country that is extremely remote. Speaking of which, maybe that'll be Ted's next expansion map for a coin game. Australia, the Australian outback.
Oh, really? Is there a struggle happening there? Is there a fight brewing?
You should call it Outback Steakhouse, except spell steak like steak land, steak.
They could actually do a coin game in Australia about 150 years ago.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Ned Kelly years, that time frame. Yeah, good stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, it's foreseeable, dude. There's a lot of possibilities. I mean, and there's a lot that could be done. I think, Ted, though, you're coming up with a hype game. Did you, was your search fruitful?
I got one. So there's this game coming. All right, so the premise here is that the game Diplomacy is wrong. Diplomacy is a classic.
You hear that, Trent? You hear that?
It's ahistorical, right?
Okay.
It doesn't model the period before World War I well at all, because you can have things like Turkish armies marching through Paris. That wasn't going to happen. So this game is called Twilight of the West, and it is basically a game of global competition among the 5 major powers: Austria, Germany, England, France, and Russia. And it basically there's a mechanic in there where everybody's trying to increase their control of the globe through colonies and things like that. But if they push each other too far, they heat up their populations, which can then spill over into war. So the tension is, if you're winning the global domination thing, you don't want a war to happen. If you fall behind in the global domination, then you're trying to start a war, because you think my only shot here is to win this thing.
This is like Bismarck's system, before
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And the explanation that I've seen is most persuasive for the start of World War I is that the Germans realized they were behind. The German high command was like, if we're going to not become a second-rate power, which is a stupid idea, but anyway, if we aren't going to, we have to have a war right now, and that's how it broke out. And everybody talks about World War I as a tragedy. how could such a thing happen? And so it's a game that tries to set up some mechanics to explain to modern people that, yeah, that's how a thing like that could happen. The best part about this is the designer is me. And
Whoa!
the game is sitting with Academy Games. Okay, Academy Games, I signed a contract for it like 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they haven't developed it yet, and it's driving me crazy. But I think it's going to be great. I can't wait to play it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard just some issues with the designer, though.
He's an ass. Designer.
Oh, yeah.
He goes on these shitty podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Ding. There
That
you go.
came out of your mouth, not
There's
mine.
the Colin Schumer nut punch. Finishing up this.
No, this has been really fun. I appreciate it. I
And it
hope they would do
be
my
neat,
game
actually
quickly.
to see a game like that with the World War One, because I was reading somewhere it's basically like the systems of alliances in Europe basically made World War One inevitable.
Yeah.
Is this like? Here's the thing, though. If it breaks into World War One, you have an entire game system that you have like developed that players might not even see, or
yeah, that's
is it?
true.
Okay, because like this makes me think of John Company, right? There's like this Monopoly revoked scenario that very much drastically changes the game, and I know that this is like popular for a lot of people to play specifically with those rules. I mean, that's kind of what if the war actually happens, right? That's
Here's the thing. First of all, you don't actually do the war.
okay.
If the war breaks out, the game ends, and you just say whoever's got the biggest military right now wins.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The reason for that is because that's how the diplomats were thinking. They weren't thinking like, Russian troops are going to
so you're getting into the headspace of the people that were in that Bismarck Germany in that era.
It's like you're a foreign minister, and you're basically you've got your king or emperor or whoever screaming at you, but you also got the newspapers yelling at you, and you're trying to balance. You're trying to make your country look important without tipping the whole system into disaster.
Mm-hmm. Wow, interesting.
It is
balance.
a pain in the ass. Games like this are a pain in the ass when you have two very different end conditions, because it's hard to teach the rules. You have to say, now, there's this one area that's really, really important 3 hours from now. And it's really hard to get people to think about it. So
when you said 3 hours from now, I think you caught Andy's ear.
yeah, no, it shouldn't take that long, but
3
Andy's
hours
just-
is a medium length game at best.
That's what I mean. He's like, I'm the one that would go, no, 3 hours, no, not again.
Yeah.
But Andy's like, 3 hours? What?
well,
That's-
Gunter
that's a
and Uwe are like, no, it has to play in 20 minutes.
Ooh, boy.
No, they want it to be really, they like the ideal. Of
I
short
see what they
games.
publish. I mean, they publish 1775, but they also publish Guadalcanal. But they're definitely looking for something that's going to bring it and make it more available to a wider audience. And I see that. Yeah, like Mare Nostrum Empires is a game that I really adore, but they definitely like took an existing game and made it more appealing to more people. And
The pitch I made to them is like, imagine Twilight Struggle that is easier for people to play.
ooh, yeah, well, I can see. Mm-hmm.
We'll see if it ever
Interesting.
comes out. Right now, it's sitting somewhere in Fremont, Ohio.
Well, good luck. Good luck to you, man. I
you.
hope to see it out, and I hope to be able to hear more from you, from a published designer, because then we can actually get real guests on this show.
Yeah, somebody who actually has something to say. I look forward to listening.
yeah. Well, next week you're going to hear a real episode of The Good, the Board.
Yeah. I wouldn't be on any podcast
Ted.
that would have me.
So I just want to say quickly, because this is audio and because we're putting this out there on the internet, so you know, I had an absolute blast, and everything I've read from Ted has been, we've been giving each other crap, but it has been a real blast to be on this. And I just want to say, man, this has been great, and I do hope this isn't the last time.
Yeah, no, it was really, really fun. You guys are funny. I like talking games with you guys. I mean,
We can
funny
go back
haha.
and forth. It's fun. Okay, the funny haha. Thank you. Yeah, because I wasn't sure what kind of funny. Okay, so yeah,
I ride the boundary pretty close.
Yeah, Andy makes funny. It's just not a descriptive enough word. You got to say more. You can't just stop there. So, yeah. Well, Andy, Ted, TC, Trent, it's been a blast tonight. I hope that you guys have a great week of gaming. I hope everybody out there listening has a great week of gaming. You too, Mur. I know you'll be gaming every day. He just made it to our discussion here at the end. Anyway, hope you all have a great week of gaming and catch us next week on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.
Thanks.